What it do, fellas? In this video, I'm going to be covering everything you're going to need to know to PvP with your Necromancer. We're going to be covering everything from your legendary gems, your essences, your set bonuses, skill charms, and much more. I'll also be showing you guys 4 unique Necromancer builds that's going to allow you to play the Necromancer the way you want to. Let's get into it. For your gems, I'm not going to go super in depth on this. I'm just going to talk about some recommendable 1 stars, 2 stars, and some 5-star gems. Starting off with our 1-star gems, we have the Everlasting Torment and the Black Rose. Activated by your crit hits, the Everlasting Torment will inflict a Curse of Agony, which at max rank deals 30% base damage over 6 seconds. Next up, we have the Black Rose. This annoying little gem will have your enemies stopped in their tracks. Receiving damage has a chance to activate Immobilizing Vine, locking your enemy in place. So overall, 1-star gems aren't going to give you the most amount of resonance, but they are the easiest to find, to craft, and to upgrade. For our 2-star gems, we're going to be talking about the Mother's Lament, the Viper's Bite, and the Curseling. Based off of your damage, Mother's is a great way to activate your crit hit chance, giving you that big crit hit damage. Next up, the Viper's Bite. Damaging your enemies will inflict a venomous poison, which at max rank will deal 45% of your base damage for the next 6 seconds. For our last 2-star gem, I'm going to be going with the Curseling. Like I always say, control wins the game. And the Curseling is an excellent way to activate your total loss of control, suspending your enemies and helping you push that idol. Now we're looking into our 5-star gems. Of course, I've got to go with the Blood-Soaked Jade. The BSJ is the only gem activated with 100% uptime, either giving you a damage buff at full health or a damage reduction when low. On top of that, BSJ gives you an additional 10% movement speed. For our next 5-star gem, we're discussing the Bottled Hope. This stacking buff is procced upon activating a buff and giving you increased damage and movement speed, and then once ranked up, giving you cooldown reduction. Last but not least, Chip of the Stone Flesh. This gem is extremely powerful in PvP and very easy to use on your Necromancer. Once activated, this gem will absorb all nearby damage into an internal ticking time bomb that will explode for a massive % of your baseline damage. Once a legendary gem reaches rank 10, it will be able to unlock the socketed item's Awaken status. Awakening one of your gear slots provides either a damage buff or a cooldown reduction of the inherited essence. We'll briefly look into our Paragon, but for PvP, your best 2 options are either the Gladiator or Warden. Activating Gladiator will grant you passive abilities like Uncontrollable, which gives you 1 charge of immunity to crowd control every 30 seconds. But hands down, the best perk of using Gladiator is the Cheat Death. After receiving a killing blow, you will be given a second chance at life, receiving 60% of your health back, but this effect can only happen every 3.5 minutes. Choosing Warden will grant you passive perks like Heavy Armor, reducing nearby enemy damage and allowing you to move freely as you reduce nearby enemy damage. Another great trait of the Warden is Rugged, which will increase your life and size. Increasing your size will also increase your movement speed. Only 1 Paragon can be activated at a time, but the secondary stats in each of the Paragons, even the inactive ones, are working. Where you can find the total amount of your Paragons is right here. When spending your Paragon points, your stat priority will be damage, armor pin, potency, armor, resistance, then life. And don't forget that you can reset your Paragon point to adjust your stats to your playstyle. When looking into the Necromancer's secondary stats, the most important will be your potency. Potency increases the duration of harmful effects and crowd control abilities. Next up, armor penetration, ignoring a portion of your enemy's armor while increasing your critical hit damage. Stacking heavily into either armor or resistance will increase your overall survivability and reduce the effects of damage over the time and crowd control effects. Lastly, we're going to be talking about damage then life. Both damage and life at early Paragon levels are super useful, but have high diminishing returns at later game. Invocation. From your Warband's enshrined weapon in the Ancestral Tableau, you can select from a variety of powerful ancestral properties. These properties are only activated by your invocations. Invocations can be found on your primary gear slots. Finding an invocation on your legendary gear is rare, but not impossible. Opening boxes and mystery legendary items inside your Purge of the Depths greatly increases the chance of getting an invocation piece. Before we get into the builds, let's go over skill charms, family bonuses, and familiars. I categorize these as quality upgrades because they do in fact improve the quality of your Necro, but can be a costly waste of platinum and are not required to be successful with your Necromancer. Skill charms. When selecting and upgrading skill charms, choose charms that are either for your primary damaging skill or your primary attack ability. Examples: Soulfire, Bone Spear, Corpse Lance, Bone Spirits, Bone Spikes. Family bonus. As you upgrade your primary legendary gear, you will acquire additional stats called family attributes. Stacking at least 3 of these attributes will grant you family bonuses, and stacking multiple family bonuses will grant you reduced cooldown. Familiars. Acquiring your weekly contracts, empowering, melding, and converting familiars, you have a chance to obtain an active trait. There are a total of 11 active traits that can be activated by stabling other familiars with active traits. Legendary traits are stackable and potentially grant you familiar with a legendary skill called Savior. If you receive a killing blow, your familiar will sacrifice itself, giving you a damage immunity for 3 seconds, but will not be able to participate in combat for the next 75 seconds. Now the moment you all have been waiting for. On to the builds. For our first build, we're looking at the Bone Spike Bone Wall. This support style build provides amazing crowd control. Correctly timing and placement of your bone spikes and walls will continually knock your enemies up, preventing their use of skills and movement, while applying bleeds and burns. The essences needed for this build are acquirable at low hell levels, making it a great PvP starter build. From your helmet, you will be able to use 3 charges of instant bone spikes with bleeds. Paired alongside with your shoulders, you will be able to knock up your enemies, and from your chest, transforming your bone walls into bone pillars, giving you 2 additional charges of knockup. Besides blocking your enemy's path, you can also ignite your bone walls with Soulfire, which at mastery level 4, your bone wall damage is increased by 90%. Usable set combinations: Banquet of the Eyes, 2-6 set. Grace of the Flagellant, 2-6 set. Untouchable Mountain Banks, 2-4 set. The Vithus, 2-4 set. Feasting Barons, 2-4 set. The Conflagration, 4 set. Next, we have another support style build, providing a shield for you and your party, preventing being knocked out of position. Essence is required on the helm, the Studed Menace. As friend and foe fall, their sacrifice won't go to waste as you hurl their remains at your approaching enemies with Corpse Lance, which at mastery level 4 deals 90% increased damage. From the chest, Wraith form now generates corpses, providing unlimited supply of ammunition. The shoulders, bone armor now prevents you and your party from being knocked out of position. Both main hands will remain the same with the Stroke of Midnight and the Reverent Wind. For our offhands, we'll take both essences for Soulfire, being able to hit multiple targets and igniting enemies with fire. For optional essences of this build, you can replace the helmet with the Emperor Worms, providing additional support by immobilizing your enemies, or the shoulders, where bone armor now reduces all continual damage taken by 40%. Usable sets: Banquet of the Eyes, 2-6 set. Mountain Banks, 2-4 set. Vithus, 2-4 set. Barons, 2-4 set. Conflag, 4 set. For our third build, we are looking at the Spirit Lance. This is definitely one of my personal favorites for its high damage and control. Releasing wandering skulls as you wraith through your enemies, you'll have them feared for their lives. Fearing your enemies is considered a total loss of control, making this build extremely easy to proc your Chip of the Stone. Essences that are required: for the offhand, Drifter's Fair. This will convert your bone spirits into wandering skulls, giving you 2 charges. For the main hand, Communal Rib, where your bone spirits now have a 20% chance to fear their target. For your shoulders, Flame of Forever. Borrowed Time now increases the damage of critical hit chance of the target by 9.5%. This effect is doubled during the duration of the curse if the target is slain. For usable sets, Banquet of the Eyes, 2-6 set. Barons, 2-4 set. Mountain Banks, 2-4 set. Vithus, 2-4 set. Grace, 2-6 set. For our last build, the Skeleton Lance, providing high consistent damage and survivability. This is the first time that we've seen the summons in PvP. Commanding skeletons will shield a portion of your incoming damage as they teleport to their target with lightning speed, while providing additional ammunition for Corpse Lance. Essences that are required: for your helm, Blinding Storm, converting your skeletons into Storm Riders. For the main hand, Blight Maw, poisoning your enemies with Bone Spear, which at mastery level 4, Bone Spear's damage is increased to 90%. For our offhands, the Krog, decreasing the time to summon skeletons, and Life and Balance, which will transfer 19% of all the damage you take to your skeletons. Optional essences: transforming your Wraith form into a dash, fearing your nearby enemies, paired with the Gloom 4 set, will provide insane amount of burst damage on your Necromancer. Usable sets: Banquet of the Eyes, 2-6 set. Mountain Banks, 2-4 set. Vithus, 2-4 set. The Barons, 2-4 set. And with the Pants Essence, the Gloomcast 2 to 6 set. And there you have it, fellas. We've briefly covered everything you're going to need to know to PvP with your Necromancer. So if you enjoyed this video, or would like a more in-depth guide on any of these topics or classes, send me a message in the comments, hit that follow button, and catch me in the next one.